quick recap of what we've already done. We have an image that we shopped together from at least 2 different pictures. If we used web photos, if you use your own picture, you can use your own picture straight up, that's fine. You added a white layer. The white layer is turned off most of the time because the top layer is empty except for where you drew with your brush. And we went ahead and thickened up some of the lines around your character, your illustration. Now it's ready for the next and final steps, getting your card put together. So when you save it, I want you to save with the white layer on and these 2 photo layers off. Then we're going to go to Illustrator, which is right next to Photoshop in your dock. If you've removed it from your dock, you'll need to search for it. It might take a moment for Illustrator to open up. Illustrator is Adobe's program for working with graphics, and it's good for working from scratch. Now, we're not working exactly from scratch. We have a little bit of a drawing, but we can do some pretty neat things with Illustrator's fills. You'll have a window that pops up and says Create New, and I want you to go to Print Document. I'm going to get to that from File and New. So when New Document opens up, it's going to have a default size. Go ahead and click OK. And if you want to rotate it, you can once you get it back into Photoshop, so don't stress out if it's not quite the same size as your illustration. So I'm going to go to File and Place, and I'm going to place my Trace PSD right there. And if you need to adjust its size, go ahead and drag these boxes, and just like in Photoshop, if you hold down Shift, it'll keep it proportionate. It doesn't have to completely fill the space. You want it large enough that you can work with it easily, and if it's outside of this little canvas, you want to make sure it fits inside. Okay? Then, if you still have this blue box around your illustration, you can click on this button up here, Live Trace. If you don't have that blue box around, you've accidentally clicked on something else, you can get it back, use the black arrow point, and click anywhere on your image, and that'll get that blue box back. You'll click on Live Trace, and you can see that my lines changed quite a bit. I'll undo that so you can see it again. If I zoom in here, I see Photoshop's language. I see pixels. Everything in Photoshop is based on these little squares. But when I trace it, I'm actually moving it over to Illustrator's language, which is based on a vector, which means no matter how far I zoom in, my lines are always going to be really clean and smooth. That's what we want. Okay, so again, the blue box is still around my tracing. I'm going to go ahead and click on this button up here, Live Paint. If, again, the blue box disappears, use your black arrow point, click anywhere on your document. Okay, so now I have all of these little blue dots and lines over my tracing. If that is annoying, sometimes it can be really hard to see, especially if you have a lot of detail. Click off of your document and those will go away. Okay? Now, I am going to be filling in these little areas like a coloring book. The tool I'm going to be using is the Live Paint bucket, which looks a lot like our fill bucket from Photoshop. And once I mouse over areas, you can see they're turning red. That's showing me what it's going to be filling if I were to pick a color and start to color with this. Okay, and it looks like for the most part my areas are fairly separate from each other. There's a couple spots where this part of his leg is kind of connecting to the other part of his leg. I'm going to fix that, and I'll show you how to do that in just a moment. But first, I'll show you how to fill with different colors. Up here at the top, here's our fill, and if we arrow down, we get a really small selection of colors. You can use these colors, but there's a lot more. If you go to this little side menu, go to Swatch Library, all of these here are different menus and collections of colors. There's even patterns, which are really cool, and gradients, which are neat too. Otherwise, it's just kind of a bunch of different colors. So if we want, like, say, bright colors, Now it's opened up this little menu of bright colors, and I can click on any of these and start filling with them. Okay, so there's my couch. It's starting to come together. Okay, and let's say if I wanted to make something a slightly different color, all I have to do is click over top of it once again. And if I make a mistake, I can just hit Command Z, and I can actually hit Command Z bunches of times, and you can see that it's just walking backwards. I don't need to take any other steps. I don't have to hold down any other keys. Command Z in Illustrator works pretty much all the way back to the very beginning of my document. Okay, so now if I wanted to color this part right here, let's see, I'm not seeing any browns, so I'm going to go back and choose a different library of color. I'll get earth tones. That'll have some browns in it for my doggy. Okay, if I wanted to fill this part of his leg as a separate color from this here, all right, right now, if I click there, it fills it all with that brown. So here's how you fix those gaps. I'm going to go to my white arrow tool, and I'm going to zoom in, Command plus, just like in Photoshop. Here's the gap, right here and right here. So to fix that, I'm going to click on the very end of the line. You can see that little box that pops up? That's called an anchor. So I click on it, and then I can click and drag. Very important that I don't try to click and drag at first, otherwise it's going to try to move your whole tracing. And when I let go, you can see the line now is connecting, and it should be separate. And I'll do that for this line up here. Okay, so it slightly changes the line, but now I'll have a different space, separate spaces for these two areas. So switch back to my fill bucket, and now I can see that those are two separate spaces now when I fill them. And I'm going to choose my brown color again and start filling in areas of the puppy. And I'll make his bib a different color. How about a red bib? And those turkey legs. And you can play around and do any number of colors. They don't have to be realistic. It's just however you want it to look. All right, so don't have to do anything particular. Just make it look good. Okay, just about done here. I think I like those, leaving those white. And I think I'm going to make the plate a color. Oops, I missed a part of the couch. Okay, now let me show you a couple things about the gradients and the patterns that are kind of awesome. So let's say I wanted to do something interesting with my patterns. I'm going to choose all different kinds of patterns here. All right, some really neat patterns. I'm going to pick one that's kind of like my couch. It's about the same color blue. Whoa, that's pretty wild. So if I wanted to put in some patterns, you know, use them carefully because they're going to have a lot of punch, okay? But try using some patterns on some part of your document, okay? I'm still looking for the right pattern here. And maybe decorative modern isn't going to be it. So I'm going to go back and see if I can find some different patterns. Okay, that's more, a little calmer. I think I like that. Okay, so I'm going to use this pattern for my couch. Okay, so there's my little doggy. He is resting after his huge Thanksgiving meal, and now I've filled in all those different areas with color. Okay, so then next, we're going to save this, and I want you to title it Paint. And you notice the file extension is different. AI, will leave that alone, and click Save. Now I'm ready to go back to Photoshop. And I'm going to make a new file in Photoshop, letter size US paper. Now, pretty important, if you want a top fold card, I'm going to go ahead and turn on my rulers here so I can see how big the paper is. 8.5 by 11, that's a standard sheet of paper. If I want a top fold card, I'm going to leave it in this orientation. So my fold will be right through here. And anything on the lower half of my paper will be the front of the card. Anything on the top half will be the back of the card. If you would like to have a side fold card, you can go to Image, Rotation, and choose 90 degrees. And that'll set you up to have a fold that goes through the middle of your card side to side, from top to bottom. So anything to the right will be the front of the card, anything to the left will be the back. My illustration is kind of horizontal, so it would make sense for me to have a top fold card. And I'm going to go ahead and make a guideline to show me precisely where the middle is going to be, where that fold is going to occur. And if it's 11, it'll be right at 5.5. Okay, so anything below this line will be the front. Now I'm going to go to File and Place, and I'll look for my AI file, my paint. There it is. Okay, so File and Place, and there's my image. So I can move it and resize it so that it fits right in that spot. And when I click OK, there it is back in Photoshop. So what's left to do? Well, I need to put some text on my card. I want you to put text on the front and the back of your card. So we'll use the text tool and choose a suitable font, and then you're going to be typing whatever your greeting is. And you can obviously use different text effects on it. So if I'm going to say Happy Thanksgiving. Okay. Looks like I need to make that just a little smaller. Maybe change the color of that text. And I can sample a color from my illustration if I want to. Just mouse over it. And I think I'll throw a few effects on that there. Make sure it's really readable. How about a stroke, a white stroke? And maybe beveling too. Yeah. Okay, and then when I go to do my text on the back, I'll type whatever, make up a card name perhaps. And doesn't have to be quite as large, so I can make that smaller. And then I'm going to want to rotate it so that it is upside down. The reason being, when I fold my card, that's going to be right side up. Obviously, if you're doing a side fold card, you don't need to worry about flipping it upside down. Okay, so there's the finished card. Some other things that are options for you also at this point, if you wanted to put a picture behind your illustration, if you had a lot of white space, you can still do that. Your paint file that's now just a layer in your Photoshop document, you can edit, use brushes on, but you will have to raster your image first. So if you want to make any other changes, let's say you really don't like this brown color like I've got on my doggy right here, you wish it was a little lighter. Okay, so all you have to do, rasterize the layer, and then you'll be able to paint and fill and do whatever you need to do. So if I don't like that color right there, sample it, make it a little lighter. And then I can use my fill bucket in those areas and change that color. Okay, so there's a quick tutorial on finishing up your card. If you have any questions, of course, ask. Otherwise, hope you are happy with your card.